Managing people remotely, keeping them engaged and motivated, and yet maintaining the flow of business is something people managers will have to include in their forte. This last session, Tina Ang will be talking about the essential people management competencies in the new normal. Valentina Lisa Ang is a chartered professional in human resources, a certified human resource professional, vice president and general manager of Latino 950, with a strong focus on retail operations and is adept in getting things done. She has also 8 years of overseas experience in Hong Kong and Taiwan and proactively building strong relationships with global institutional investors and Asian C-level executives. They are people managers, Miss Tina Ang. Good afternoon to you, Tina. Uh,
Good afternoon, Jester. All right, we're ready. All right, I'm here to talk about the essential people management skills in the new normal. We all know that 2020 was one of the best and probably the worst years for many companies and the HR community. Okay, on January 12, 2020, Taal volcano exploded. So a lot of people died. There were 39 people who died. 70,000 people were evacuated. And at that time, the volcano, it was a calamity for us that was special because matagal nang hindi sumabog ang Taal, 43 years ago pa. Okay? But a few weeks later, Filipinos came across what is now known as COVID-19. So on January 30, the first case of COVID-19 was actually reported here in the Philippines. It was only on March 5 that we first had our local transmission. Okay. And by March 11, the first Filipino patient passed away from severe pneumonia. By March 16, the government announced ECQ, which placed thousands of businesses on lockdown and millions of Filipinos displaced. Okay. It was followed through by Super Typhoon Rolly on November 1 and a back-to-back Typhoon Ulysses on November 12. As we can see, it was really the best of times and the worst of times for Filipino businesses. ECQ and COVID-19 stopped the booming Filipino economy from its track. Okay? And majority of the business chased a lot of pogos away and left a lot of employees in flexible work arrangements, floating status with no work, no pay, retrenched, redundated, or unemployed. However, on the flip side, I'd like to say that 2020 offers a very unique opportunity for businesses and HR departments alike. There's a saying that you can discover true nature of a person given a crisis. And there's no better crisis for the HR community than 2020. Lahat na ng pwedeng mangyari, nangyari na sa atin. One thing remains the same. Companies are still run by people, and people are still managed by the HR department. Hence, if the HR department is in control and knows how to handle all these crises as well, the business actually turns out way better for it. Bakit? When the government ordered the lockdown, who was the liaison between the managers and the employees? When Dole and SSS announced CAMP and SBWS, sino ang nag-facilitate ng application? Who facilitated the payroll during April to May when most of the companies were actually on lockdown? Who did the employees complain to? When? Walang ayuda. Who made sure that companies can return back to work when the government allowed companies, businesses to gradually open? Hindi ba tayo the HR department? That's why if the HR department is magaling, everybody benefits. The businesses, the employees. And important to an HR department is that you have to possess essential people management competencies on what we now call is the new normal. So here are a few points. For me, we need to make the best decision. And this means to be brave, to be empathetic, to be strategic, and to be timely. What does it mean to be brave? Why in HR do you need to be brave? For me, a good HR is like a good compass. you must almost always point to the right direction. We can make mistakes, but mistakes must be minimized because we are handling people's lives. We're handling employees and their salaries, which affects their livelihoods and their families. Pag nagkamali ang HR, very complicated siyang ayusin kasi we're dealing with people. So in order for us to be brave, you need to have confidence. Confidence that you are actually making the right decisions, given limited information at the correct time. And that's where we give so much value during ECQ. Kasi wasn't it at that time, during crisis, that we are supposed to make right decisions, given limited information at the right time? But in order for us to be brave, we need to know our stuff. If you don't know your stuff, you cannot be brave. Example, kahapon, I released Labor Advisory number 31 series of 2020. It says the bayaran of holiday pay is now deferred that was deferred is now moved to December 31, 2020. I also included that please note that establishments that have totally closed or ceased operations during the community quarantine are exempted from the payment of holiday pay. And number two, under the Philippine Labor Code, the staff needs to be present the day before. And I posted this in multiple HR groups. Okay? Here's the problem. Pagka-post ko pa lang, the first questions was, ano po ang ibig sabihin niyan, ma'am? May nagtanong, during the ECQ period, kapag temporary close ang company, exempted po ba sa pagbabayad? Or kailangan pa bang magbayad? May nagtanong pa, hindi pa binibigay ang holiday pay natin. This clearly shows that a lot of HR or people who are in HR are probably not as knowledgeable as the labor laws or company rules and regulations as people might think. It doesn't mean that you work for the HR department, you actually know what to do at the right time. So I challenge all HR people. If you want to be brave, if you want to be confident, you really need to read and understand. How many of you actually read the content of Dole labor advisories as soon as they drop? Or do you wait for somebody to provide a summary to tell you what exactly it means? Tulad ni Michael, ano po ang ibig sabihin yan, ma'am? Nandun po lahat ng sagot in the labor advice, but we have to read it. We need to actually search, click on the link, and make sure we read the information firsthand because we are the HR managers. We are the representative, and we need to make sure we are able to communicate the correct information to our people. For example, in October, Secretary Bello said 13th month pay can be deferred, or some people might be even exempted. Remember, a lot of people parang panicked and said, oh no, wala na po tayong 13th month pay. Illegal ba yan? Napakapabor naman ng DOLE sa mga employers. But do you guys know that this is actually based on Presidential Decree 851 that says distressed employers are actually exempted from paying 13th month pay subject to the approval of the DOLE Secretary. Pero at that time, nobody even bothered to look at the basis on what the Dole Secretary was talking about. Mabilis tayong mag-react, but we don't do enough research. If the HR manager must be brave, he must do the legwork. He must research, read, understand labor laws and the company rules and regulations. If you know the right answer, only then can you guide the company to do the right things. Make sure. So for me, dapat, for you to be brave, read and understand. The HR Bibles are there and all online. We're now in the 21st century, so it's all convenient. Find out the answer before people ask you. Once nagtanong na yung tao sa'yo, ma'am, Bayad po ba ang holiday pay ko? Please make sure you already know the answer. And don't tell them, ay hindi ko kasi alam, check ko muna kay boss. We are the HR department. We need to know the right answer. And all the answers are there. If not, go online. Make sure you do the homework. Number three, ensure everybody else follows, right? So if the boss and manager cannot follow the rules, you're in trouble. One exception to the rule. You have to make sure you have buy-in from management and there is no exception to the rule. For us, for example, we do have a 3-day rule in asking for leave of absence. Approve po ang vacation leaves namin so long as you ask 3 days before. What do my staff do? They usually ask the day before on or the day itself. HR must have the discipline to stick to the rules, no matter who asks. Kasi if you give way, you will set the precedence pala na, ay, pwede palang magbakasakali. And the HR is willing to bend the rules if necessary. Every time I say no, people follow the rules. When people follow the rules, operations is a lot more smoother, walang masyadong problema, and people can just focus on the business itself. Say no when needed. Be brave. A lot of HR is saying, galit sa ang boss ko. Kasi sabi nila, lagi ako nakikinig sa staff. Pero when they talk to the staff naman, they always say, galit si staff kasi isip nila sip-sip ako kay boss. You need to know the rules and regulations. And then you need to actually have the courage to say no if it goes against the laws and the rules and regulations of the company. Kasi pag pinapagbigyan mo palagi ang tao, kayo po ang mapapahamak, hindi yung tao na yun. We need to stand firm. The second thing is, be empathetic. I define empathy is not doing people's work for them when they could and should, but empathy is helping your people out when they could not. A lot of people think empathy as, naawa ako sa tao, kaya mabait ako. I'm the champion of the employee. But empathy is not doing people's work for them. It's giving them pamasahe. It's not giving them free food. It's not doing their jobs. It's not making them get away from offenses pag they do something wrong. Pag nagmakaawa sa'yo, pagbibigyan nyo ba? Empathy is actually helping people out when they could not. And the best example of empathy is actually during the lockdown. Kasi ito talaga, kung hindi pumasok ang company, who will help out these people during the 2 and 2.5 month lockdown? Kahit na manghiram ka ng pera, yung magpapautang, wala na ring pera pagkatapos ng April. ECQ was the time our people needed us the most. And ECQ is the time where we actually need to step up as HR department. A lot of companies say the best asset of their company is their employees. Tapos pagdating ng EQ, pagtanong ng ayuda, scene zone lang. Humingi ng camp, SBWS, galit pa. HRs, fellow HR managers, please. Empathy is helping your people out when they could not. At that time, it was 2 months, no work, no pay. Saan ka pupulot ng pera? Wala. For us, what we did, when ECQ was announced, our first effort was to do the math. We did not know when the lockdown was going to end, but we knew our staff could not survive without our help. So, since we did not know how long the lockdown would end, we were willing to give at least 1 month's pay to our employees. But unlike many other companies, we didn't give our employees full pay. Kasi no work, no pay naman. People were in lockdown, rent was deferred, and we wanted people to stay at home, but we didn't want them to starve. That's why we gave everybody, all our staff, allowances just for the ECQ for food. Food lang. And nobody complained kasi they all knew no work, no pay. It's what you call grasya. Salamat po sa Diyos, pero at least hindi po kami magugutom. Here's the challenge. If you love your staff, what did you do for them at the time they really needed you the most? So when MECQ was announced, we never really had any problems asking people to report. 95% of our staff reported except for those who were 20 less than 21 years old. Some of them even walked an hour to work from Soler to SM Mall of Asia. And I think part of the reason why they were so giving and so understanding about the flexible work arrangements is because they understood that at the time when they need it, nandyan po yung company para sa kanila. We need to be rigid, be brave, be a bitch if you need to be, but we need to balance it out by being empathetic when people need us the most. Be there for your people when they need them the most. Next, be strategic. A lot of people gave money during ECQ. Many companies, many large companies gave full pay on April and May during the lockdown. Tapos, pagdating ng mga May and June, they were asking the staff to report. Sabi nila, okay, tapos na yung ECQ. I know there's still COVID out there, so I need you guys to report. And a lot of staff actually said, no, takot ako sa buhay ko. I don't want to go out yet. And are you still gonna pay me for June? Yun nga yung problem eh. We give freely but we don't think. A lot of companies, I know of a big construction company who gave money for 2 months. So the people actually, para silang nagparty during the lockdown. 1 month after the announcement of MECQ, guess what? They actually had an aggressive retrenchment program. They retrenched 1/3 of their employees. And what's worse, the money that they gave over the 2 months na ginastos ng mga staff nila, binawas pa nila sa final pay. That's what I call, guys, we have to be strategic. Yes, if you want to give with conditions. Huwag ka bigay ng bigay lang kasi naawa ka. It's not a charity. We're operating a business. But at the same time, make sure you always think of the long term. In HR, we make hard decisions. Sometimes the wisest decision is the most unpopular decision. For us, in our company, bawal po ang bale. Bawal ang credit advance. Why? It's not because we want to make people's lives difficult, but as you can see naman in my previous point, we're very empathetic. But we do not want our staff to be baon sa utang within our company na hindi na nila mababayaran and their take-home pay is only like 2,000, 3,000. It's not even enough. We want people to save. We want them to be disciplined. And for sure, we want them to take home their entire pay. Being a good HR means making the hard decisions, even when it's tough to. You know, that's called love. I have a daughter, she's 5 years old. It's easier for me just to give her an iPad and let her play whenever she wants to. But that's not love. When we love our kids, when we love our employees, we need to say no. Because if we don't say no, we always say yes. We let them do whatever they want. At the end of the day, somebody will come in, audit all of us, and fire everybody of us kasi left and right, sobrang gulo na sa company. If the HR is good, the company truly will benefit. Number two, if you want to offer a policy, make sure you think of cost and consequences. For example, work from home. When the government announced the lockdown, so many BPOs allowed work from home. O sige, let's deliver all of the laptops, all of the equipment to the people's house. Logistics masters tayo. But here's the question. Who pays for the internet? The company or the staff? Given that the staff already saves on transport cost, is it fair to actually charge the company for the internet that's being shared by the staff and their entire family? Diba? How will you monitor actual work? What if the staff makes Daya and logs in, puts a little brick on the spacebar, and pretends that he's working until the time to log out? Do you pay them overtime if they're working from home? Given that, you're not sure, you don't really monitor their actual work. What if they do something during the duty hours? Sa amin kasi, it's 8 hours of office work. Nababantayan po namin sila. Pero if work from home, paano kung kunyari, in between those 8 hours, maybe from 9 to 6, they go to the grocery? Do they have to time out? Can they charge you for the time they go to the grocery? What if performance is lacking? How do you actually discipline them? Do you send them an email? Do you give them a letter? Dapat, before you announce a work from home policy, management and the HR department must already think about these different factors and actually write down the policies and give it to the staff. Sabihin nila, okay, we do have a work from home option, but it comes with certain conditions. Are you okay with that? If the staff is not okay, don't make them work from home. It saves us a lot of effort if we are more strategic when it comes to announcing policy because we are dealing with people's lives. The problem with us is, kasi we're on stress, we're in crisis. That's why we didn't really think it through. So every time may nagtanong, I will always have to ask my boss, paano na naman? Anong gagawin ko? That's really the wrong way to do it, my friends. As HR, we should be at the forefront of being brave, being empathetic, and definitely being strategic. We should think about these problems before they even occur. My last point is being timely. When a staff goes to you regarding an inquiry, for me, it's like opening a stopwatch. May timer na yan. The longer an HR department takes in dealing with the staff's issue, the longer the credibility and respect the staff has for for the HR department. There is a time. Bakit? For example, we had a staff who, you know how retail staff are, right? They're very careful about their OTs. So the staff reports to the supervisor, kulang daw ng 3 oras ng OT yung DTR niya. The supervisor forgot and did not inform us. So we did not know. We were not able to check. The problem in the Philippines is if the HR department does not react immediately, does not place importance with the people's problems, what does the staff do? They talk to another staff. They talk to their husbands, their wives, their mothers, their fathers. They talk to so many people who have no clue on what the rules are, what the company rules are, and only gets one side of the story. I really hate it or I really don't like it when everybody asks opinions na wala naman talagang alam. But that's what happens when an HR department takes their time. Remember during ECQ, so many HR departments or so many HR managers did not really know what to do. So what they do is they just ignore the people. Hindi na lang nila pinapansin. Here's the question. Does the problem ever go away? No, it doesn't. It only gets worse. And it's also the HR department that fixes it. So when a person comes to you with an issue, make sure that you actually address it immediately. Being timely means reacting swiftly, thoroughly, and correctly. We're in the retail industry, so uso sa amin ang pilferage and theft. What we do is, we make sure, ito lang when somebody goes to you with a problem, for example, something's missing, you need to investigate thoroughly. A good HR department must work hand in hand with the operations department to find out what exactly happened, how it happened, why did it happen, and who is responsible for the offense. If you're going to write that notice to explain, you better make sure that ang annex niya kompleto, that you really know what happened and how it happened. And the only way you can do that is to interview people firsthand. Not just interview and get their story. Make sure when they answer those questions to make them write their responses, to document it in written format. Then compare what they wrote to the stories that you hear And pag may inconsistencies, kausapin mo uli. Kausapin mo sila at kausapin mo sila hanggang mahanap mo yung katotohanan. HR must be thorough. Kasi if you accuse the wrong person, you might be ruining somebody's lives. And it's very important for us, if we're going to win any case, labor or civil cases otherwise, in cases, for example, na may qualified theft, we need to make sure we have the right culprit. In one of my stores in San Jose, may nagnakaw ng items. When we made that complaint affidavit, our annex was from A to M, starting from the DTR of the person. Bakit itong tao ang the one who was responsible in taking the items and nobody else? We got affidavits from the colleague, the supervisor. Okay, we made sure that all of the inventory sheets and documentations were Xerox and highlighted, and we can actually explain for the judge how he did it. We must be swift, thorough, and correct. My final words. COVID-19 brought out a unique opportunity for both employers and HR alike. A lot of people think 2020 is the worst year. I actually disagree. I think 2020 is one of the best years for the HR department and the company to shine if they handled all these crises very well. Kasi every year naman, sa totoo lang, maraming problema. Every single year. But what is important, very important, is that the HR department knows how to handle all these crises. A while ago, somebody asked the questions, should DOLE require companies to be prepared? I'd like to say, I'd like to think that companies are already prepared. Good HR departments are already prepared, right? And if you are prepared, if you are an asset to your organization, if you're brave, empathetic, strategic, and timely in your people management skills, no problems, I think. Not even Taal volcano, COVID 19, or even the biggest of typhoons will be enough for you to conquer. Thank you very much. Open for questions.
Thank you very much, Tina. I think mukhang natuwa sila masyado sa iyong talk, no? Walang questions, more on commending you for that. No, very simple yung kanyang presentation, no? Be strategic, be brave, and be simple. Those are very simple words that we have to remember because as leaders, so we're so focused on reskilling and upskilling our employees to prepare them in the new normal, but we have actually forgotten ourselves to become strategic leaders then, no? Have we focused on ourselves, now reskilling and upskilling ourselves, no? We always build a future ready workforce, no, by building behavioral competencies like resilience, psychological safety, agility, and collaboration. But as again, as leaders, no, are we even future ready leaders, no, dito sa ating current setup? So any few words and reminders again to our leaders, especially in this time of pandemic, Tina?
I think a lot of leaders, like I was talking to a lot of businesses. Apparently, a lot of bosses didn't really know what was going on in their companies because they were not very hands on, especially for a lot of small to medium sized businesses. They usually give it to professional managers. And na yun lang during the pandemic that they've actually really looked into their company operations. I think it's very important here during the COVID-19 that you can see which companies are good and which companies are not so good. If you're not really, if you were not really there for your people during 2020, what are the chances that you'll be there for your people when they retire? I mean, you really need to know how to pick your employer. You spend more than 8 hours a day, at least 5 to 6 days a week, working for a company. And it's very important for employers to step up. Now you know what they're really like. Yes, they always say people are their greatest asset, but pagdating naman ng pandemic, scene zone lang. But I think the best message for me is for HR departments. We actually have a very big responsibility in an organization. People always think we're a cost center, pero pagdating naman ng ECQ, sino ba tinatawagan nila? Hindi ba tayo? I mean, like, what happened to the salespeople? They were a lockdown. They did nothing, and all they did was complain. It was actually the HR who navigated the company and all the employees into safety. And if the HR really was good, and I challenge every HR managers to be good. Kasi it's very easy to be good. Then I think, that's probably not going to be your last job. And then if your company doesn't really appreciate you, I'm pretty sure so many other companies will. Because it's really a personal thing. It's really the owners. The owners must really step up during the pandemic.
Yeah, that is correct. Now, actually, this time is the best time to learn, relearn, and unlearn. Kasi with the
Yes.
onset of COVID-19, no, everyone was compelled to acknowledge that we cannot continue the way things were done before. No, so we have to change to adapt to the new normal. No, especially especially leaders. No, it's not just our employees, but it should start sa ating mga leaders. So thank you for that wonderful session and ending this session. No? Sabi nga ni RJ De La Rosa, it's a great way to end a whole day activity. Thank you again, Tina, for gracing the
Thank you.
event. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.